good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are from. You're welcome to another episode of the Certified Tester Advanced Level Test Management 3.0 syllabus take. And my name is Maud Schlich, and I will present to you today the Certified Tester Advanced Level Test Management syllabus with a chapter Project Test Strategy. This is a section which took quite some time to write because we had lots of discussion with a lot of people and actually rewrote this chapter several times from scratch because of many outcomes of these discussions. So what you are presented today and in the syllabus is some well thought document of project test strategy. The project test strategy has 3 blocks in the chapter, in the sections, which I will explain shortly. The project test strategy is not only about projects, it's about anything which is developed in for a system or software. It may be a classical waterfall or remodel project, so a software development lifecycle which is very traditional. It may be a new release. It may be used using Kanban, or it may be a product development, maybe using Scrum, or some kind of acquisition initiative, or any other type of system development. We didn't come up with a better wording than project test strategy. We needed some definition which is not the organization test strategy. That's why we used project. But feel very free to use another version of this for yourself. You may call it differently. The ISTQB talks about the organization test strategy, which is something which is better explained in the expert level test management syllabus and in the ISTQB Certified Tester Agile Test Leadership at Scale, Atlas. Both those syllabi are really exploring on how to come up with a new organization test strategy. Here, in this chapter, in the section, and the whole syllabus, we are using the organization test strategy to come up with our smaller derived project test strategy. And remember, it's not about project alone, it's about any kind of software development or system development. What and how do you do this? Well, there are 3 major blocks in this section. The first is about the project test strategy selection of a test approach. Here you should try to combine test levels with test types and test techniques for either static and or dynamic testing or any other thing you might need to combine. This is merely something you need to check out depending on what is at which test level the best kind of approach to continue. What test type, what test techniques should you use at which type of test level? And you combine any of these. You have to come up with a really good project test strategy, the need to analyze where you are. And where you are is where you are in your organization test strategy goals, your project context, and any other aspect that have an impact on your project test strategy. So you need to analyze some factors. And to have a real value out of this syllabus, try to imagine that this chapter is something like a checklist, something which helps you to come up with an optimal test strategy for your project, for your release, for your whatever, so that you are not omitting anything, not forgetting about anything. The first thing is you need to know which domain you are working for. Most companies really know their domain very well, and this is not a brain teaser. It's very easy to come up with a domain, but the domain itself has lots of a huge impact on what you need to consider. Imagine being in a pharmaceutical company or medical devices. These companies have all those regulatory things they need to take into account. The FDA or GXP, GAMP, MDR or DRALEX, whatever these regulations are called. And all those regulations really are demanding. They demand quite some things which you need to take into account in your project test strategy. And I'm sure as a test management, you know that quite well. Other companies, like automotive, for example, have mostly given test levels. So you're not so free in choosing test levels here. And this is a good example why this domain issue is also something you have to take into account when selecting a test approach. So you're not doing this in a sequential kind of way. You're really combining all those factors with all the test approach things together and come out hopefully with an optimized strategy. The organizational goals you have given with all the quality characteristics you have to fulfill are important as well. It may be that your company is having a goal like you have to reach some kind of model like TMMI, and you have to fulfill a given level there. Yeah, so might be you should, with your project, try something to be able to fulfill these goals. Or maybe you have some quality characteristics, like anything which is going off our company to the customer has to have at least some kind of measurable quality characteristics. And if they're not reached, then it's bad for your company, it's bad for the reputation of your company. Then you have some project goals given. It's not the goals for your testing project, the project goals are for your overall project, which you have to take into account. Like the project has to be finished by. It is not allowed to cost more than whatever. And also there are some things that are in scope of the project that you cannot discuss. They are given. Yeah. The type of project is important as well. It's not the same if you're developing something for one customer, specific software, or if you're developing something for a market. And it highly depends what kind of market this is as well. Then is a very important factor what kind of resources you have in your testing. Because you know quite well that testing should come from the beginning, should start at the very beginning, but is always the last thing or nearly the last thing which is finished. Because testing is always finished when the last tests are done, which is usually at the end of the project. And testing resources are often reduced. So you have to take into account how many people you have, what kind of hardware or software or other testware you are available of, at which times in the project, which devices you might need at which time, which licenses, whatever resources you need. Another very important factor you need to analyze is the software development lifecycle. And this is not about just saying Scrum, Kanban, waterfall, whatever. It's really about looking into your company, looking into how you interpret these software development lifecycle models and what is specific concerning the testing and concerning, therefore, test strategy you need to come up with. Because not every Scrum project is similar to every other thing, every other Scrum project. They differ, or they differ always. So look at what kind of people do you have, which roles do they take on, who is doing testing in that team, with which material are they testing and whatever. You may have a Scrum project which is doing continuous deployment. And it's very different from doing some agile Kanban style project, let's say call it project, which is just yet another release of a well-known software, well-done software for years now. Yeah. So there are huge differences in your test strategy that you need to come up with. One other thing are interfaces, and today, let's say interfaces mostly to other systems, interfaces to other teams, other projects, which you need to fulfill. They are perhaps waiting for you with your tests. They need to wait that you give them information, that you give them a sign that they may start their tests because yours are finished, whatever. And the last thing here, but not the least thing, is the availability of test data. If you are in the financial sector, let's say an insurance company, then test data are mostly used from production data. But to be able to use those data in your testing, you have to change them, anonymize them, or whatever, to be able to use them. So the availability of test data is important, so that test data are available as soon as you need them in your testing. And all those factors make up your test strategy. They tell you where to take a closer look at. And this is what you have to analyze. So when writing in these chapters, we had lots of discussion what you do when you are test management position and need to come up with such things. And always remember, we have the assumption that the organizational test strategy is given. So there are many things you need not worry about too much because they're given, you can just use them, reuse them. It might even be that you have some kind of boilerplates to come up with your test plan. So you have to select more than to really create something new. Test objectives, the third thing, is a chapter we added because we found test objectives to be something sometimes neglected thing. Because test objectives should be SMART. You most probably know that acronym. It's about a specific, measurable, attractive, realistic, and testable test objectives. So let's say, what is a SMART test objective? It's specific. So it's very on the point, in the pocket, what you should do, what is at the end should have been done, what should be the outcome. Measurable is you can really have some figures on it telling you if it's fulfilled or if it's not. It should be attractive. It should be something your team is really focusing on. The project test strategy is written for your team, for the whole test team or the whole development team and test team, or perhaps they are all in one. And it should be something which is really guiding you throughout the whole project to take a look at very often. So if it's attractive, you surely do. Then it should be realistic. It should be achievable. And it should be testable. Now, what's a testable test objective? Well, it's highly connected with the measurable because it's testable if you can really answer the question, is our test objective fulfilled or is it not? As soon as you come up with test objectives, I'm really sure you will go back to selecting a test approach, perhaps even go back again to your test analysis of organization test strategy, of project context and other aspects, because all those things are highly interconnected. And typically you would write those things down in a test plan. And such a test plan is not written from A to Z. It's written here and there, and you go back and go forward and go back again. And you need to talk with others about what you come up with. The test plan is something like a contract, and it's the formula for what comes out of your project test strategy. What is for you the orientation for the whole project concerning the testing? So what is it, and what are the benefits of the new Certified Tester Advanced Level Test Management 3.0 for the project test strategy? Well, in general, it provides you with quite some things. For example, first thing and first very important thing, it's not for projects alone. It's also for releases, for products, for any other type of system development or acquisition. It's defining and using the main factors for analysis of organization test strategy and project context. And you may use this as a checklist, just to not forget anything. It gives you some very valuable hints for defining test objectives. And finally, as the test planning's main outcome is a test plan, and normally this is documented in some kind of document, this is some vital thing. It may be that you have this document only written down on a whiteboard or somewhere on a digital tool, like a lifecycle management tool, where Scrum goals is defined additional to some testing goals. That's okay, that's fine, whatever helps you. So this was the presentation for the chapter Project Test Strategy, and I'm now open to your questions. I hope you have enjoyed this, and if you are leaving now, goodbye. Otherwise, I'm here for your questions. Thank you. Oh, quite the first one. What would you suggest? When should I start with a test strategy? Well, that's an easy one because you should start as soon as you are able to start. There are surely some questions you can answer quite soon, quite quickly, but others are giving you a headache perhaps, and you need to take your time to to talk with people, with stakeholders, to come up with a total test strategy. Hope that answered this. What if I don't have access to an organizational test strategy? Well, yes, then you have to try to get the information. You would need to consider this from the appropriate stakeholders. Go to your management, ask them if there are some organizational goals. Ask quality assurance, ask other test managers. I've once been in a company where all the test managers met at least twice a month. And this might be some sort of premium where you could ask for this. Who should write project test strategy? Well, I would say in a more classical environment, you have somehow a test management role, a test manager in person, perhaps, who has responsibility to come up with such a test strategy. If I stick to other domains, it might also be some kind of validation leader in the pharmaceutical or medical device industry. It might be somebody who is responsible for quality assurance, or it might be the team. When we are more agile environment, then the whole team is responsible for nearly everything, especially for quality. So just pick one who is responsible for writing down for the extract and come up with the ideas with the strategy together. Use your combined brains to come up with all the answers to those questions with the analysis. Best would be to start with it very early, with all people involved, all developers, and whoever takes part in your team, including product owner for sure, and most probably also for the Scrum Master or whoever takes on such a role. And maybe have also some kind of test manager coach, which has maybe formerly been some test manager in a more classical environment, who might help you here. Any more questions? Okay, None so far? Well, if there are any more questions, you see my mail address down under all of those slides, and I would be happy to answer those later. Just ask. Thank you for your attention. Have a very nice morning, lunch, afternoon, evening, or good night. And see you soon, sometime else. Goodbye.